Dinkelman coming to us from the audience. Can I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Motion? Support?
Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Do we have any recognition tonight?
I don't this evening. We'll have a bunch next meeting.
All right, any correspondence?
No.
Okay, that brings us toward communication. Melissa, would you like to start?
Yeah, sorry. I was able to attend the first football game of the year at, where was it?
Forest
Why am I
Hills
always forgetting?
Versus Northern.
Was it Warsaw? Yeah, that's probably, yeah, and that was fun. I only was able to stay till halftime, but, I did get to see your son though, Jeff make an incredible play. I do know a little about football. I've gone to a lot of college football games, so I know a good play when I see it, and I saw an incredible play, so please tell your son that was, it was awesome watching him, but, yeah, that's pretty much all. I couldn't make it to community night, but hope everything went well.
Danielle?
Yeah, I also could not make it to community night this year, but the pictures looked great, and it was, of course, said it was a little cold. Probably a little windy. But, yeah, everything else, thanks.
Jeff?
I'm all set.
Yeah, so, I held down the board representation at community night for, a table there, so we did the big Jenga and Connect Four and bucket toss and all of that. So it was, looked well attended, and even though it was breezy, it was at least sunny, so, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Thank you for doing that. Mark?
I think I'm all set.
Tracy?
All set?
I spent my weekend at the high school painting parking spots with the seniors. This year we had 40 who participated, and we were very excited to bring it back. Hoping that tradition can go forward, but I was telling Jerry the best part for me was really seeing so many kids with the parents and participating in that together for hours, for the whole weekend was pretty cool to see. And really, I only saw students with phones when they were taking pictures of their artwork. So.
How does that work? Every senior is assigned a spot, or do they purchase it as like a fundraiser?
It was a fundraiser from the Senior All-Night Parents Committee, and $10 of it went to their parking space, and then if they wanted, the rest goes to the all-night party. And yeah, we're hoping to get a big group next year to take on those spots, to repaint them. But it was a lot of fun. So that was my whole weekend, so nothing else to report beyond that. All right, that moves us to discussion items and Department of Teaching and Learning.
Good evening, folks. I'm here with Megan Johnson, Director Johnson. We just want to lift up the work that the team has done regarding the wellness policy. Megan can speak more to process and how we got to this point, and I'm going to ask her to do that, and then we'll follow up with next steps and all those efforts to make sure we're in compliance. Go ahead, Megan.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. So to get it started, we formed a committee, and we tried to make it diverse by inviting teachers, parents, physical education teachers, nurses, administrators, food service staff, and students. We were able to get, our committee was full of 1 parent, 1 student, 1 nurse, 1 physical education teacher, 2 food service administrators, 2 district administrators, and 2 board members. So we had an array of people in our committee, so we thought it was pretty good. The process steps that we used, we did a preliminary meeting just to kind of see what we currently have. We then did independent review alone so we could kind of think about it and put thought into it. And then we came back together for a committee working session that was about 2 hours and kind of just went step by step through the choices we could make. And then we kind of just concise together. And our guiding question throughout the process was, what best supports the health and well-being of our students while balancing the needs of parents, teachers, staff, and administration. So we tried to tie that all in together, every question we were asking, to make sure everybody could get something out of this. And then the result is the one that you have in your packet. So.
hearing, is that accurate?
Yes, yep, so we need to bring this to the public to have, the community members have a say if they would like, before we can adopt it, I believe. So,
And speaking with Superintendent Hopkins, our thought process is to schedule that hearing immediately before our next board meeting, and then just roll right into our second reading of the proposed policy.
Sounds good.
So, for the sake of the people that weren't on the committee, not to ask you to do extra work, but it would be nice if the changes were, I wouldn't say do that for necessarily for the public, but for the board, just to see the called out changes.
okay,
If you want my help with that, I'm happy to help out,
Okay.
as having been on the committee, so.
okay, I can work on that.
Thank you, Tracy. That work is already in motion, and
Oh,
we're very
perfect.
close to having that done.
I
Okay.
was gonna say, I did just, that was my same thing, I emailed earlier asking for those. What I did want to say is I won't be at the next board meeting, so, because I was on the committee, of course I support it, but what I did want to recognize is you in particular, because, you're extremely thoughtful, and, it showed for sure, working with you and talking about the different groups, and even the teachers and staff, you're extremely thoughtful, and I just really appreciate that so much, so thank you.
Appreciate that feedback.
I wanted to mirror the same thing. Sometimes when you sign up for these committees, you just don't know what you're in for, how well organized they will be. You spend a lot of time and energy making sure that we were scheduled at times that people could attend. You encourage participation from all members. You did a great job of getting a good subset of people there. Some people I think that hadn't maybe been involved in anything like that before. So really, thank you for leading that charge.
Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. That brings us to finance.
All
Do we
right.
need to-
Well, the check registers are in your packets, if you have any questions on that. That's just the August, last time we had 2 months with not having a meeting, so the August check register is in there. We have state budget update, you probably know, we don't have a budget, so that's the update. But I might have heard that, I'd say things are getting like little unrest, especially amongst the employees, as it's getting closer to that date of, if there isn't a budget, like jobs, will things be cut? So definitely some concern there. For us, I would say the biggest thing is just cash flow. As we go through this, and we talked about that, we had through the Kent ISD, we had a meeting, and that was definitely the biggest topic is like, hey, do folks have enough? We're in pretty good shape right now, I think, with the summer taxes. The timing of where we're at in the cycle is good. So we have plenty in the bank right now, and that's one reason in your materials, like you don't have an investment report, which you would normally have. We're sitting on that cash just because we need it liquid right now to ride this out, just in case budget doesn't get approved. If it does, then we can look at investing some of that, but right now we felt it was best to not lock it up and have that liquid as we go through these next couple months, so.
So there's no target date for approval of the budget at this point. It's just in limbo, right?
They're
Well,
already
I
2
mean,
months.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the target is
Yeah,
October
target
first.
passed.
Target, I
Yeah.
mean,
That's the
And-
one.
as of July first, they missed their first target, which they had a self-imposed deadline, which there aren't any, like, there aren't any sanctions that they would do to themselves or anything like that. It was just something that they aspired to be able to do, knowing that school districts, Board of Educations, would have to approve its budget by July first. They aspired to get theirs done by July first as well, so.
So
this-
if they don't come in with an approved budget by October first, what are the overall implications? That's my part one of my question.
Yep.
And part two of my question, I'm glad that you say we're in a good spot, that makes me feel better. But I'm just curious, at what point, where's our go, no-go, where we say, okay, if we don't have something in place by this, it becomes an issue?
Yeah, so, just like at the federal level, if the state doesn't have a budget, there's a government shutdown. So employees closer to land likely. But the last time we had it, can't remember how long ago it was, it lasted all of about 6 hours, I think. And then the legislature decided that they needed to pass a budget. So, doesn't mean that this one would be that short but, that is what happens is the, government employees likely, would stop work at that point until the legislature does in fact pass a budget. School districts, because we, as Ken has already mentioned, we have cash on hand and we would be able to ride out any government shutdown for a bit of time, so. But it makes people uneasy, right? I mean, because they don't know. The unknown, it doesn't happen a lot, thankfully, so people don't know exactly what does this mean for us. So as we get, there's a communication that I can send out just to encourage our families, to make them aware if they're not already aware, and to kind of encourage them to, if they're concerned about the possibility of the state not passing a budget, to encourage them to get to work, to settle their differences and for the betterment of the state.
So do we have anybody that provides services in our, I'll just say 4 walls, that is a government employee? Like I look to Alpine, some of the services that we have there, the groups that we've contracted with. Anybody there where our services could potentially be affected?
There may be some.
I never remember
yep,
that group's
yep,
name.
Kent School Services Network,
Yes.
KSSN, but they're funded, I met with Dr. King, the executive director. He had more questions for us and what we knew about than what he knew about what was going on in Lansing, but they're funded in part by districts pay a portion of individuals' salaries as part of the contract, and then they do capital, they have capital campaigns and philanthropy that raises funds for other pieces, but they do also receive some funding as well. So he wasn't so sure at the point I met with him about 3 weeks ago as to what impact, if any, they would see in it, but certainly the staff that we fund would be okay again for a while. Beyond that, I'm not sure what other services may be impacted, but we can see little disruption
Okay.
for a time being, yes.
Yeah, that was the one that I thought of right away when you said. So then maybe my second question isn't as relevant. I guess if you're at a comfort point, then.
Yeah, I mean, we're comfortable, and through the KSBO, we have another meeting, I wanna say it's next week, but one of the things, and I can't remember the timing of our meeting versus that meeting, but at that meeting, we talked about this, because depending on where people are on, like, different cycles of their property tax, some people could be in a much worse spot than us, right? If they're at the end of it versus the beginning, they don't have all that money in the bank they need it to come in. So we did talk about, basically some cooperative borrowing, and I guess they had looked at this in the past, versus each district going out in the need of having to borrow. Kent ISD would actually facilitate that, and then it helps you better rates as well. So, they were supposed to do some legwork and bring that back to the group. So if things got really bad, we could also borrow if we needed to in this situation, some short-term borrowing. So I'd have probably more information on that in 2 weeks, because I believe that meeting's in between. So that was something else that we're looking at. So we talked about that meeting, like, hey, better safe than sorry, right? Do we think we really need it? Hopefully not, but should do the legwork just to make sure. So, and fortunately, Kent ISD is doing that for us all. So
Thanks for staying on top of that.
we're trying.
And, hopefully districts don't have to do that, because the unfortunate part of that is, there's interest on it, right?
So you don't borrow anything for
Yep,
free.
exactly, so, then you're using general fund down the road to pay off interest that could have been avoided had there been budget in place.
And then the last thing under the finance section, we do have our director of IT, Rick Webb, here. There was a recommendation in the materials to purchase some new network equipment, and through Rick's great work, we got, I guess, grant funding to cover, what, about 3/4 of that, roughly? Yeah, of that, through this grant, and so then obviously the school district would pay for the remaining balance. But really just life cycle network equipment that needs to be replaced. So it's a good use here. And I don't know if you guys have any questions or if there's anything Rick wants to add on that.
I don't have anything to add unless you have any questions.
So this is something, and I apologize if this fell off my radar, we identified previously, and now we're at the point where you have the numbers, right?
So this is something that, if you're familiar with the E-rate program, that's federal dollars that are out there that we can subscribe to based upon, we get reimbursed from that based upon our free and reduced lunch population. So that's something that we started this process about a year ago, knowing that we needed to do this replacement, applying for those dollars, knowing that unless those dollars are approved, this project isn't happening. So we entered into that agreement as a part of that process, and then formally requiring this body to approve it to actually go through with the process. So yeah, we've been working on this for a while. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Do those funds have an expiration?
Yes, we have to spend and use this money by June of 2026.
My
So-
question would it be wise to put this off a couple months until after we know where our
This is-
dollars are?
They come out of the bond funds.
They come
so
out of
yeah,
bond.
Yeah, so it won't come out of the general fund, so
Yep.
yeah, there's no,
Okay.
if it was general fund for sure, I'd be like, all right, can we pump the brakes and wait till it gets approved, but yeah.
Yeah,
the bond
no,
fund.
our portion is coming from the bond funds, so it's there.
2020,
The
no,
2020
2020
bond.
bond.
2020.
Yep, it's the technology portion of the 2020 bond.
We didn't already have that earmarked for?
It was earmarked for technology. This is one of those
General,
expenditures
okay.
just finally coming to the point of doing, much of this work was done before I arrived here 2.5 years ago, but as most districts that are doing it well, you're trying to stage those purchases across that bond so that you're not front-loading everything and then needing to replace it all at the same time. So there's been a pretty good path to follow with what things need to be done on what cycle to keep things from getting all jumbled up and having too much to do at once.
Where does this leave us after this amount? How much is left earmarked for technology in
We'd
that
have to talk
bond?
about that. I don't know for sure. I don't
Are
have
there
those numbers.
remaining earmarked funds? Is there a plan for that?
Yes. Yep. We have several other projects. The next one that we'll be working on is the infrastructure that holds most of our data and stuff here in the data center, the server infrastructure. That's the only other piece that we really haven't completed of that work for infrastructure.
I think you mentioned that last time when we talked about
Yes,
this, right?
yes,
Okay.
and that one,
Now it's coming back.
that one would have been maybe ahead of this project, but the vendors that we use have made a lot of changes that have made me very leery of continuing down the path we were intending to go down. And the state of Michigan has offered a lot of things to us as far as opportunities for funded investment in cloud infrastructure. So we're exploring what that would look like, what the ongoing cost of that would be past the funding that the state would give us, and to see if it's the right direction for us to jump into that bucket or have a mix of both or completely do what we were planning to do, but maybe use a different piece of equipment or the same equipment. So we're still evaluating all that to figure out what's the right solution that gives us the best bang for our buck and the least ongoing legacy cost in the future.
Rick, isn't our, when we replace devices for students as part of our rotation and staff devices, that's all coming out of?
That
this
comes out of the
grant
same place, yep.
Program from.
Yep. Which we did that this year. We replaced all the student Chromebooks and kindergarten iPads this year. And those are already in the classroom. And this, oh, another thing to mention, on top of that, this will also dovetail into the $1.2 million E-rate project that we did with the fiber network. That will allow us to connect all of that new fiber with this new equipment. Is already part of this solution, intending on that all being there and being able to connect it together, so.
All right. Yeah, move this on to your report.
Quick report this evening, just 3 items. First, as the board probably has been accustomed to, start of the school year. We do this 2 times a year. Once it's the start of the school year where I ask each week for the building secretaries to report on student, at this point we're reporting on student attendance rather than enrollment. As we get a little bit further into the school year, they'll be able to actually confirm their numbers in Power School. But at this point, you know, we're still processing students that drop. And, you know, we're always very good about getting the students in as quickly as possible so that they're part of, you know, taking attendance every day and that kind of thing for student safety. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer for districts to, on the other hand, to request records. And so we don't drop students until records are requested of them. So there's a little bit of a process there that goes into that. So you can see week 1, which was a Thursday collection, due to Labor Day weekend, and then last week on Friday. And what I often say, won't be the case this year, but what I often say at the beginning of the year is the first collection that we do is really our high water mark, because even though I ask for secretaries to report on, you know, students who have attended, and not necessarily Power School numbers, those numbers can fluctuate a lot. Usually the first week is the highest, but as you can see, we've already changed that, in the sense that last Friday our numbers had gone up a bit from the prior week. And that's in part because we were still enrolling students, believe it or not. Last week we're still enrolling students today that have moved into the district since the start of the school year. So these numbers might in fact go up a little bit more on Friday, we'll see. But I'll collect those each Friday up until count day, which is October 1st. I've also shown it on the 3rd column, and I provided this in my weekly update too, so if this looks familiar, that's where you've seen it. But I've shown how we're doing relative to the enrollment study that was done by Plant Moran. What I have not done, but plan to do, is really dig into it a lot more to find out kind of where it was different than what the projections had indicated. So I haven't done that, but I will do that and can report on that at some other point. But you can kind of see kind of where we are. Our K-5 total is up from what Plant Moran had projected, even though Alpine Elementary is down. And we kind of saw that as we got really close to the start of the school year, especially their kindergarten numbers. So we're down more than what Plant Moran had projected, but Central's, on the other hand, were up, so more than what Central had projected. So Alpines were down, Central's overall were up. Zinsser is pretty flat, if you will, based on the projection. And then, so overall at the elementary level, we're up by 14. I should also mention that ECSE is one of those programs. These are for, you know, pre-K students, pre-kindergarten, could be as young as 3-year-old, and they have to go through testing in order to qualify, and that can happen all the way up until really count day. So based on when parents bring their children in to have them tested. So that is the one number that will likely continue to go up. I don't foresee it going higher than the 31 that Plant Moran projected, but I could see it getting up to 31, so we could see another 8 more students in our ACSE program. Our middle school is up, even up higher than what Plant Moran had projected, and Mr. Bob reported on our tactical call today that they had, I want to say, 4 more 7th grade students enrolling there. So their 7th grade numbers are quite high compared to 6th and 8th grade. And then high school is down overall. So overall, we're about 11 students away from what we had budgeted, but I'd like to believe we'll get
Kind of interesting that the Plant Moran number is spot on with the audited number from last year.
From the spring audit, yeah.
Did a projection and it's
Yeah.
flat.
They didn't have that spring audited number, but that's.
I'm assuming it
yeah,
is just
right,
copy and
right,
paste,
right.
so, yeah.
Cause I didn't get that until actually this summer, so. My second
Jerry,
item.
does Alpine Elementary still have the big swing in and out swings with that?
Mobility.
Yeah, okay.
Quite a lot of mobility, yeah. They do, and they likely will continue to, and that's just something that we plan for, we plan a program for, so.
Jerry, I'm sorry if you said this and I missed it, but the Plant Moran projection, is that supposed to be a fall projection, a spring projection?
That was a fall, that based on, we use that for,
Okay.
our blended count when we built our budget, so, yeah.
Did they give, do we have a spring projection from them too?
No, it was just based on fall, as I recall. I'd have to dig into it a little bit more, but historically, most districts end up going down in enrollment between fall and
Right.
spring. And you can see that that's happened for us too. Most years that's been the case, but that's been a little less recently than what it has in the past because we don't have as many migrant students,
Right.
sadly.
Seasonal
Yeah.
population has gone down.
Yeah, significantly. Second item I have is calling your attention to this for a couple of reasons. I noted on here, both Donovan Brazier and the Roth family. I'm going to start by saying, you probably saw in my weekly update over the last few weeks, we've been inching closer to closing on the purchase of the Roth property. That did happen on Friday. It's official. The Roths are on cloud nine. They're super happy. We're super happy that we're able to get that across the finish line. Took much longer than any of us thought. But when we started the process, one of the things that we had talked about as part of that initial agreement was, they agreed to giving us a very fair purchase price because they wanted, if the district was interested, they wanted the district to be able to purchase that property. District purchased the property from the Ross years ago when the middle school was built and the athletic complex was constructed. That was all Roth property to begin with. So now with this purchase, we've kind of purchased all of the property that they had there on that corner over the years. So as part of that, they asked if the board would entertain some naming. They didn't specify what it would include or to what degree it would include, quite frankly. They're going out right now, and now that the sale has been finalized, the purchase has been finalized, they're getting it appraised again. The IRS requires that as part of the process. They have to get it appraised as sellers.
After the sale?
Yeah, and so, because then they can work with their accountant to determine what kind of, how any of that
Capital gains.
capital gains can, that or loss, if they sold it for less than what it was valued at, that they could claim on their taxes. But they did that and would love, because of all that, they have done in their mind, and I would agree, concur, for giving the district a great purchase price, would we consider doing something in terms of naming that? Whatever that might entail. No, there was no commitment on that. I just know it was a discussion. I want to keep bringing that forward. Without a solution at this point, I just want to bring it forward. However, board policy 7250 that we have in place kind of outlines what some of the expectations would be relative to that policy. For example, naming, there are some conditions on that. One of which is the individual has to be deceased. And so, unless there's, board, like with any other policy, would agree that, by a majority would agree that they're going to, this would be an exception to that. We also don't have any guidelines for this particular policy. So, I've suggested some draft guidelines. So, this would be for, we have the structure of policies which the board sets, and then we have administrative guidelines which the board doesn't necessarily approve. There are some that they have approved in the past. For example, facility use and the amounts that the board has set for charging for facility use. But generally speaking, administrative guidelines are done without board approval, and that's because the policy's already there. Administrative guidelines just tell administrators how to administer those policies. So I've given you some, for your preview, some what might be draft guidelines to support board policy 7250. That includes kind of a process, so that it's not like willy-nilly, this person, this experience wants to be, or whatever. And so I've provided those to you at this point, but I do want you to know that we do have a couple of them. It has been suggested for a while, I think it was actually brought up at the board table, it's been a while now, but, that, Donovan Brazier, who graduated with a class of 2015, that the board do something to recognize his accomplishments, not only as a high school athlete, and a state champion, for Kenowa Hills as an individual, but also, his NCAA champion and world champion recognition and so forth. And so there's been conversation, about, do we name the track after Donovan? Because that's where his success was found on the track,
Wait,
running
he
800, so.
reached out to us and asked us to do
Oh, no, that would not be
That's what
Donovan.
you just said.
No,
So-
no. I said others have asked about
Oh.
the possible, no, he would not
Okay.
do that, no. Good question though, but he would not do that.
So I guess my question is, we're not updating the policy because that's written. What you want us to do is say, we've seen what your guidelines are. Are we gonna be voting on this? Like, what would be the action here?
So the action would be if there's an appetite for doing something with the Roth family and or Donovan, that would require some formal board action, because the policy as it's written indicates that individuals that are going to be recognized have to be deceased before they're recognized.
I guess for me, like, this is like what I do, right? Like capital campaigns and things like that. And so I feel like when I was reading this, I'm going, you guys aren't really, and I know you're wanting to be forward thinking, like not do it willy-nilly, but you're actually not enough forward thinking about what are the naming opportunities? What does that look like?
Right.
And honestly, like, giving away opportunities to have more, I know that I'm a fundraiser, so I'm thinking of financially supporting the district. The Roth family did kind of financially support this district, et cetera. And while I have a daughter that ran track here and things, I think that he's a great guy, he did a great thing in life, but like, he does come back into town, you're kind of giving away a lot by naming a whole track after, that is like so I guess in my mind, I think that what I'd like to see, whether it's the facilities person as your full scope of all the things that are happening here, like, what are some of the considerations of what naming opportunities would be? Because, I mean, you can name that, that television and that door and that and that and that and that, and so like, where would that start and where would it stop? What would those considerations be? I think he, aside from not being dead, he could fit within that, but I would love for you to see something a little bit more forward thinking of not just going, oh, we should name the track because he ran track. What would be, obviously appropriate and closer to it, if you wanted to do it now, would be something within the trophy case or within, the gym or what, whatever, versus
Right.
like naming, because
Right.
there is a lot of opportunity in the future for, more, I don't know.
Yeah, and he and others are going to be recognized,
Because I know he's
Yeah.
part of the Hall of
Yep,
Fame
yep,
and
the
all
Hall
of
of Fame.
that,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
So I guess, that would be my concern is like, you see, and I think I remember, it was like 5 years or something.
Not to
5 years.
extend more than 5 years.
So
Yeah.
there's two different things,
That's
and
a
I wanna
naming
make.
contract.
It says in the
Yeah,
policy.
That selling the naming right. So the way our policy works today is there's two distinct parts to it. There's commemoration, which is, I assume the intent was recognizing people that are deceased. I'm not sure, only for those individuals who made a significant contribution. But it doesn't say, the policy doesn't say deceased. I don't know if that's an assumption.
It does state they're not being deceased. It says that any employee of the district that's honored must be deceased.
Oh, there it is, right there,
Or no
okay.
longer employed.
So it's referencing the commemoration portion limiting the deceased, but we have the rights to sell the naming rights, which I think is the piece of the puzzle that you're talking about, Cory.
Yeah, you know, what, I mean, obviously there is a lot of opportunity there for a lot of different ways to look at it. And so I'm not saying that you have to, but I'm just saying that you can't if you name somebody going forward, you know?
So, here's the part that I wanna add on to that. We have a lot of advertising that happens, right? We have, I believe the boosters sell ad space on the Jumbotron now. We have ad space in the gym. So I think kind of to join onto that, I think the last thing, yes, would I like to see us be able to make some money out of some of our facilities? Sure. But it's a fine line. You don't want to have the tennis courts named for this business and the track named for this person and the soccer field. At some point, it can get excessive, which is where a plan or some structure would be nice. Or a philosophy or kind of an idea of where do we want to go with this.
And I wasn't, and again, my intent was to state that we have one, possibly two, that people have been asking about, right? So it's something that the board maybe doesn't have to address, it could just completely ignore it, but I think it would be wise to have conversations about what do we do in light of our current reality. I can appreciate what Cory's saying. I'm not prepared to go there yet with a comprehensive plan, because it's, having tried to do some raising of funds for different things, school districts are just different. We're not, businesses aren't looking at naming, having their name on something that we, any of our facilities, because we just don't, there's not enough return on their investment to do that.
I think when people that do, it's typically like, I'll use an example, that Andy Egan, I don't think they do it necessarily for the advertising, I think they do it to support the district that they're, that they've been involved in. I think a lot of it comes down sometimes to sentimentality more. But the piece that I wanted to add to it is, as we're undergoing all of these outdoor facility updates, if this is something that we're considering or thinking about, now might be the time to be having these conversations.
Yeah, what I'm seeing is people first, buildings after. Like, we think we should help these people, let's do that after. You're like, is he recognized as a great athlete? Absolutely, but, like, does he need a building named after him? I don't think so. And so if you don't have, like, identified places, that doesn't mean you need to actively fundraise for them. But if you don't have identified places in which that could be, then you are chasing it, you're just like chasing your own tail. Because as soon as that person gets named, guess what? There's gonna be a not even a short list, a long list of other people who say, what about this person? What about this person? What about this person?
And that's,
I can just add my 2 cents for what it's worth. Like, Donovan Brazier, they don't, as you said, they don't come around every day. I don't know the last time we've had an Olympic champion, world record holder, like, he's naming a track after him, I see as a pretty benign movement and nice honor. And the Roth one I was thinking about is we're creating a walking trail on their property. Those seem like pretty not, kind of easy things to do. When you start talking about monetizing buildings, that's an entirely separate conversation.
And that's a conversation that I'm not talking about right now. I'm talking about, right now, you are recognizing a person and then trying to find a fit for him. And that is not, in my mind, the appropriate way to go about making decisions
When you say
about
find a
your.
fit, can you clarify that for me?
Like the track.
Yeah, but
Like the
that's
track.
pretty logical.
I mean, it's logical, but it could be any, like,
Especially if you named a stadium, because the track is within the stadium. If you were to come back and say,
what,
the Roth Family Stadium with the Donovan Brazier track inside
they
of
do
it.
that, yes.
Yeah.
We have that, like, I mean, that's what happens, like, in my job all the time, all the time. It's like, literally every hospital bed has a name to them, and, you're giving it away. My point is that there are far more appropriate and easier ways to recognize an Olympian. If you tell me that he comes back and establishes a scholarship and has a mentorship program and has 20 years, then that would be another story to me. Like, what about the football coaches or something that have been here for 20 years? I feel like the graduation and then the accomplishment is two things. Like, are they committed to the district going forward? There's a lot of famous Olympians that never ever go back to their high schools. I know he has. I follow him on Instagram, so it's not something that I don't think that he does, get, coming back or whatnot. I just don't think that, like, if you came to us and said, hey, with board approval for this person to, because he's not deceased, then I would say no, because I don't think that we've put our ducks in a row to go, these are the spaces on campus in which, if the opportunity presents itself, would be appropriate for a naming rights.
Yeah, I think the policy part, though, I don't know that we'd amend it to accommodate these two folks as much as just look at the policy to say, do we want to be limited by the mortality, right? I don't know that you would just amend the policy for two quick people and.
No, and
Oh, I
that, I
thought
think
you
that's the
said they
purpose.
would
I
bring
think
it
he's
to
saying
the
we don't
board.
need
That's-
to amend our policy because we voted for it.
Correct,
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah, you could, and that's why I think where the draft guidelines come in place. I would just encourage you to take a look at the guidelines so that we have something to, because I think that gets at your point too, Corey, is there's a process in place, you're assessing
Yeah.
individual, recommendations, and there's a, so take a look at that, and love input on that. Again, not looking for action tonight or any, I just, especially for the Raw family, it's something that, I don't want that to go stale, knowing that it's still real close to them, and we should be looking at what does that look like. And I can, work with, individuals to put together a recommendation if that's what we need to do. And I can appreciate a broader perspective too, right, without getting too far ahead of ourselves and making decisions that then in the end complicate matters down the road, so. Just timely, so I brought it up, this evening, and we'll continue to talk about it.
The
Please
Hall of Fame
continue
thing
to-
is later this fall, right?
That is
Or the home football
October
game.
7th, I think, 7th. Somewhere in October. I think it is.
Jared, what the board can do though, this policy hasn't been looked at or updated since 2007.
Correct, yep.
So really, it should be an updated policy at best, and we can have that discussion around
Yep.
that. But, I just wanted to back up what Corey said, because I couldn't agree with her more. I don't think I could have said it better, but actually, that was my exact sentiments when I was coming in to this. I just don't think naming it after a person, I'm just not quite on board with that, so
Sure.
I appreciate that.
So feedback is appreciated, we continue the discussion. Third item, we do this every year too, this is informational, this evening, but by the next meeting, the board will have to take action, and based on the size of the district, and size being based on student enrollment, the board here is able to, identify up to 3 voting delegates at the delegate assembly at the MASB Fall Leadership Institute, which is, the delegate assembly is on that Thursday evening, so October 23rd. And so it's in Traverse City, so the first thing is, you know, if you want to be a delegate, you have to be going to Traverse City.
Who is attending this year?
I don't know at this
I'm
point,
not.
so, and then 3 alternates, so,
I'll be out of the country.
Nice.
so that might be good to kind
So
of have
Melissa, is
conversation.
anybody else going?
I haven't signed up yet.
Planning to go to at least one CBA class, but I have not decided about that one.
I'm attending, but I will not be at the next board meeting, so that, we'll just have to,
So would you
Yeah.
like to be a
you
delegate
can put
in
me
that?
as one if you would like
Okay.
to, yeah.
I can come up Thursday if need be. I was gonna try to do a one day, so the Friday classes, not Saturday.
Well, let me ask this, I mean, if we send one person,
That's okay.
That's
You need
okay.
there's,
Two.
it's not like we have to meet the
No.
3,
No.
we can do
No.
up to
Up to
3.
Having done it
Oh, okay.
before, I think.
So,
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to think they have to change it.
Right.
And if you've been to it, you know it's
Yeah.
typically pretty strict. Although last year was a little entertaining. You spoke last year, Aaron.
Did.
Yeah, so, we'll just need an action item next time that identifies up to 3 voting delegates and up to 3 alternates. I don't know that, I suppose there's probably been a time where we've had identified 3 of each, but, you don't get a prize, just for, having filled in all the blanks, so.
Nice when you did
It'd be
get
nice to
prize.
know how many people are going and whether or not you wanna serve in either of those capacities, either as an alternate if the named delegate can't attend or delegates can't attend. But we need to do that by the 22nd because we have to submit that to MASB by beginning of October. So we, make sure that that's on our radar. That's all I have this evening.
All right. Okay, Mr. Dinkelman is showing me an empty folder, so no public comment tonight. So that brings us to our, very empty, yeah, it's extreme. Okay, that brings us to action items. Seeking motion and support to approve tonight's consent agenda, which includes our August 25th regular meeting minutes and our check registry.
Motion?
Support? Any questions?
Did we have any updates made to the, consent agenda since it was first put out?
No. We have the 2 items, the regular meeting minutes and the check registry that we always have.
So, in the folder, the only thing is it's showing is the minutes.
There's
We
the
don't have it.
check registry.
We don't have
Oh, you're right.
materials.
Never mind.
Yep.
No questions?
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Future items for consideration. All of our meetings are listed. The only other things to note are, of course, the annual leadership conference, if you decide to go. The school finance and legislative boot camp on the 30th of September. There is a link Jerry put in his update, so sign up there if you're interested in going.
Does anyone plan on going?
I am hoping to, but I have to reschedule something before I can commit.
I never signed up. What did you say sign up for?
There's a link right from Jerry's update on Friday.
Oh, okay, all right.
That will take you right there to sign up.
Do you know what time it starts?
I can do that now, oh my God.
6 to 7:30.
It's too bad it wasn't a little later and we could get together for dinner ahead of time.
You can always do something after. That always works. And the only other thing is concessions on the 17th, so keep that on your radar too and let Julie know. All right, that brings us to go around. Melissa, would you like to
Wait,
start?
concession is the 17th of this month?
October.
Oh, I'm like,
Sorry. No,
I
mean, you can show up then.
I
and
missed
see if
that.
you might need help, but
I don't know that that's even a Friday, but.
it
I'm
might not
terrible
be.
with dates, I blame it on old age.
Wait a minute,
And too many
when
things
is
on
the
the
leader,
calendar.
when is the Traverse City Leadership?
That is the 23rd is the Thursday, so it'll be the weekend of 24th, 25th, 26th.
Concessions is the week before.
Yes.
I'm getting hit, I'm missing both of those weekends. My apologies.
It happens.
Weekend to weekend,
Actually, we
No,
started,
sorry.
did you want to start?
I
with
think
one
I
now?
did say already that I will not, I said, I think I said it 3 times, no, I will not be at the next board meeting. I am going to the MASB conference. I will be a delegate if you want me to be.
You win.
Sold.
Yeah, I know. I get it. It's- and I'm happy to see our Pathways student rep here tonight. Thank you, Micah, for coming and attending. And,
So when we do go around, Micah, the first part when we do our board communication, we just board members speak during that. And then at the end, we do go around, and that includes everybody at the table. So think about what you want to say.
all set.
You're all set, or you can say you're all set if you don't have anything.
I'm all set.
Jeff? Jerry?
Two things, I wanted to introduce Micah Perry. He is a senior at Pathways High School, and he will be the student representative representing Pathways High School at our board meeting. So Chase was disappointed he couldn't be here tonight when Micah was at his first meeting. He's working, and he couldn't get tonight off, but he has assured me that he has the rest of the schedule for the board meetings and will be there whenever possible. So he's looking forward to coming back and serving on the board this year. Second thing is, we do have Gus Macker this weekend, so it's a great opportunity to showcase the district. We have down a little bit in teams from what we had last year for their 50th anniversary. I kind of somewhat anticipate that a little bit because most people wanted to play during the 50th anniversary, but we have 313 teams registered to play. Some exciting news, we have a top women's division for the first time in 10 years here, so that we'll have teams in the top women's playing on a sport court right next to the top men's division, so that will be exciting.
What does that mean? Like in the past, nobody has signed up for that?
Yeah, they haven't had enough, we've had some, enough of them to have a division, so they often play, you know, on another court, which, you know, they would prefer to play in a court where they're competing against other collegiate athletes, but, so we're excited to have that this year. We also have, as one of our special event sponsor, another exciting news is the Lindsay Hunter Foundation, so to anticipate Lindsay Hunter will be there for a bit of time on Saturday, so for those of us, those be my age, he was somebody I can relate to as being a former Detroit Pistons, but
He's coaching Sparta
he's
now?
coaching at Sparta and has his foundation actively involved in our Macker because he believes in what Macker provides for students, the opportunity for them to play basketball, and as a college and professional athlete himself, basketball athlete, he admires that, but also promoting the Lindsay Hunter Foundation cause as well. So, and we have, although 313 down in teams, we have individuals from 9 states represented in our Macker. So, gives you an idea. It's not, most of it is from Michigan, of course. Most of it is from West Michigan, of course. Many of them are our own students, of course, but we do have individuals coming from 8 other states as well. So it's a nice way to showcase our district to those that aren't familiar with Kenowa. So that's all I have.
Great, thank you.
Nothing except for we're going to Julie, let her know that I am registering for MASB.
Oh, good. Okay.
So,
Just one thing, on your weekly newsletter, Jerry, you wrote about the ice hockey club.
Yeah,
And that
yeah.
kind of fell apart.
yeah.
Has there been any other schools that have reached out to?
They,
Really
not at
puts-
this point, you know, this was actually one of those, as Mr. Willick mentioned, this is something that the coach had been pursuing for a while, I mean, for been talking with different schools about. And so I was really disappointed to learn, as was Mr. Willig, that it didn't, get across the finish line in East Kentwood, because it was our best opportunity to have something different. So I'm not sure that's why I said to Mr. Willig, where does that leave us at this point? Because it was not real promising based on what was presented. And so, we'll see where it goes, but if you recall, he was also mentioning that we're kind of late in this process too, right? So
Right,
it's
we're
like,
kind of
yeah,
getting to a point of,
That's
Yeah.
where my questions
Yeah.
were around, what are our next steps? Are we at a point where because I know he said safety is an issue, right?
Yep.
If it was just low numbers,
that'd be one thing, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah. So,
so,
more to come.
and if these students need to try to find, I don't know how this works, I think if their district doesn't have a particular sport, do they have the opportunity to play elsewhere or not?
I'm not sure. That's something we'll have to pursue.
Okay.
If you recall, last week on, when it was, so they were gonna, I guess it was a week before that they would have had the conversation about it. And when, I think Mr. Willig reached out to them when he hadn't heard where that was, and that's where he learned that, it never even got to the board level, so unfortunate.
Didn't the MHSAA have to approve it as well?
They're just, if all parties have already agreed to it, it's just
They
more of a,
would-
yeah.
They would have had to give a waiver
Correct.
because of
Oh,
the,
okay.
attendance
There was no-
exceeding the enrollment numbers. On that, I'm sorry, for you? Good? You can go more, I just come back.
For right now.
another thing on that is, I heard through Hockey Booster that there was something early this year with Sparta, trying to get that going.
We tried, yep. That's where we would love to be able to get something with other teams within
what
the
I was
conference,
Right.
because then it's an opportunity there, so but it's hard right now because they already have a cooperative that's already under an agreement, so you gotta kind of work through the timelines of things too, so, and they're in a different place because they're, right now, a really successful program with a cooperative that they have, so, but we have, we mentioned the fact that we didn't see this as, if we were able to agree, come to terms with and be part of a cooperative with Kentwood, we didn't see that in the long term.
Right, at least
It was something to get
get you over the hump here.
yeah. So we'll continue to explore that. That has been explored already.
Did
On
they
that
give reasons why they didn't want to? I'm sorry.
Because they're already in a cooperative, they already have an
The
agreement,
Kentwood?
and they're two, Kentwood, I'm
No,
sorry.
did they give a reason
No,
why the board turned it
no.
down? There was no.
The board did not even see it.
Wait, what?
It didn't even go to the board.
The administration.
Administration.
I think in your update, you said you guys were gonna follow up.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Another thing that came out of that, when we were talking about the numbers and that what, Mr. Willig had provided didn't appear to include the pathways numbers. And he said those were the numbers he pulled off the MHSAA website. I did confirm those, the
That's what was reported, yeah.
pathways, yeah, and that, we need to get that updated, right?
We're working with the MHSA on how to manage that, so, yeah.
Okay. Okay. This one is kind of a question. I noticed on here, Mr. Dinkelman is listed as Director of Secondary Curriculum. I'm used to seeing that listed as Assistant Superintendent. Do we experience a title change?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was earlier this summer, I think.
We restructured.
We did the restructure.
Well, I know we had talked about that when we were thinking about bringing in another Director of Human Resources, but I never realized that was finalized. Last time we met, we identified that the transparency.
Yes, it's on Ken's list, but right now, yeah, we're working through it.
Okay, so the transparency report still needs to be updated.
I'm gonna be honest, it's gonna be a while.
Yeah.
Like, with all honesty, like, I know it needs to be updated, but we have a lot of, like, state and federal requirements that I have to get filed and audit, and I don't have a team in place yet, so, but.
Isn't that a legal requirement, though, to have that?
Really,
It
I
is.
thought.
It is, yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll get it updated.
Yep, it's on the list, and I made contact with, I can't remember what the name of it, whatever the software platform is, so I have the contact, and, but, yeah, I have to get trained on
Tricks.
how to, yeah, on how to use it and get it updated, and so it's on the list.
Okay, and then.
And if it's on, once I have staff in place that can assist, I'm happy to hand that off to them to help with as well, but
You don't have anybody reporting to you at this time?
I have one person.
Payroll?
A payroll, accounts payable, extraordinary, yes.
How many open positions do you
We
have?
have one.
Is that the normal size of the team?
We have a temp,
Two?
we have a temp.
And we have a temp that just started on Friday.
Okay, and then, Jerry, last meeting we had a question Erin brought to public comment. Have we responded to her yet?
I talked to Dr. Horner. Dr. Horner led that, process, so she was going to, I don't know if she has at this point, but she was going to reach out to see if Erin would be willing to meet with her, and she could talk about her concerns associated with that process.
Okay, I would like to get updated
You
on
will.
what the response is
Yep.
to her. Because
I will.
that question, made me have some questions as well. So, okay, I'm all set.
Ken, anything?
No.
No? Micah, anything you want to add? Besides, you're really excited to be here? Awesome.
Mike, has anybody sat down and kind of gone over the whole flow and what happens and talked to you about student, things that you can report on and stuff like that? Yeah, I just wanna make sure you're not coming in totally cold, well, what are these crazy people doing? If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us.